Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. So it's been a crazy past couple of weeks, and been on the road traveling a lot. And I went up to the ArnFest event up near Chicago, Crystal Lake in Union, Illinois at the Illinois Railway Museum this past weekend that I'm filming this. That for me was actually a 9-day trip away from home. I actually sandwiched the ArnFest event in between two business trips, and I was gone from home for 9 nights in a row, which is a little beyond my threshold of what I like to do traveling on. And that's really hurt me as far as doing shop time, working on my shop. But I did get back home safe, and what we're going to do in this episode, I think, is talk to you a little bit about some of the items that we picked up at the ArnFest event, and just telling you a little bit about ArnFest. It was an absolute wonderful time for me. As always, I get to see a lot of people, a lot of friendships with people that I've made over the years that go repeatedly year after year. I think this was our 12th annual event, and I've been to every one of them. So, and there's only a handful of us that have actually been to every single one of them. 5 or 6, I think, is all. But I'm proud to be in that group. But it was an absolutely wonderful time. We had a huge crowd there, and you know, a lot of people there on the OWWM discussion forums, Old Woodworking Machines, which is really where it got started. But also a lot of guys came in from the YouTube channel here, came in to see some of the YouTube guys that were there. And of course I was there. Mike Wiggins, Backyard Machine Shop, he actually rode up with me part of the way. He lives here in Georgia, and we've been friends for many years, Mike and I have, and I met him up in Louisville. His daughter just had a baby up there, and they were up visiting the baby, and anyway, Mike jumped in the truck with me and rode up to ArnFest for a few days, and then came back, picked his wife up, and they went back home. Also got to see Mr. Pete, Lyle Peterson. That was quite a treat for me, because I guess when I first started watching YouTube videos, Mr. Pete was one of the first channels that I really found out there, and in many ways, Mr. Pete's kind of the grandfather of all the YouTube machinist channels. Not necessarily because of his age, but just because he's been doing it probably longer than any of us. And I have a tremendous respect for Mr. Pete, Lyle Peterson. And this was the first time I'd ever had a chance to meet him face to face. And I didn't get to spend as much time with him as I would have liked to, but what little bit of time that I did get to spend with him, it was quite a joy. And in fact, we even did a little horse trading. I'll share some of that in a little bit. But great time. Just cannot express how much I enjoyed this trip, and how much I enjoyed getting to talk to many of you guys out there that made the trip down. You know, it's kind of like going to the Bar Z Bash for me. It's just, wow, it's a blur when I look back at it, because it's just, you know, so many different people. I can't even remember half the people that I talked to, but it was a blast. I remember the conversations, I remember the faces, I just can't remember all the names. But it was a lot of fun. But on Saturday we had the swap meet, and for me that's a big part of what I like going to, just seeing what all's out there. And I had some items that I was selling off the back of my truck on the tailgate, and I actually picked up some new stuff as well. And I think this episode we're going to talk about the stuff we brought back from ArnFest. Some of it was stuff I acquired there, some of it was stuff I actually had previously acquired, or some people had given to me, whatever, and that was kind of where we hooked it up, and I was able to bring it back with me. So we'll get in here and show you what all we brought back from ArnFest. So first item here I'll show you guys is this little Biddy teeny tiny Arbor press. You know, I'm not really sure why I needed this, but it sure was cute. And probably a big reason why I bought it is this was actually sitting on the pile of stuff that Mr. Pete was selling. And when I saw it, I've seen these before, and I really don't know that I really have a need for an Arbor press this small, but like I said, I've just always thought they were neat, and I've always would kind of like to have one, and there it's sat. Mr. Pete had it on his tailgate there for $50, and I gladly paid him. Comes with the original daisy wheel in here. It's still intact. These things are often missing or kind of chowdered up. You know, this one looks like it's in good shape. The paint on it looks like it's pretty much all still there. You know, the handle's not bent. I mean, it's about as nice of a little arbor press as you'll ever see. So anyway, I couldn't resist, and like I said, I gave him some cash, and we brought it home, and got to chat with Mr. Pete. Got to see him face to face. Normally, all you see in Mr. Pete's videos are his hands, and I actually have a rare photograph of what Mr. Pete looks like. So anyway, it was quite a treat to get to meet and talk with Mr. Pete. Next item here, I was pretty excited to find this one. This is a great big vise, and I've been looking for something like this to go on my welding table. I've got my little Wilton machinist vise, but I really didn't want to put that on my welding table just because the vise on your welding table usually ends up getting beat on. You get out there with a torch, and it's just too nice of a vise. And I really wanted a bigger, heavier duty vise to go on there as well, just simply because I know, again, around a welding table, you're usually just really needing to just honk down on something really hard, and a big vise is nice for that. So when I got out to the swap meet, I kind of made a first run around, just kind of seeing what was there. And I saw this vise sitting on the table. I looked at it, and I'm like, man, that's nice. Well, I kind of wanted to kind of scope things out first, and one thing led to another, and it was probably another hour and a half before I had a chance to go back around, and I said, well, that vise will be gone. Walked up, and it was actually getting close to the end of the swap meet. It was still there. Gentleman had $125 here on a piece of tape, what he was asking. I looked at him and said, would you take $100 for it? And he said, gladly. So I toted this thing back over to my truck, which was no feat in itself. But this will go on my welding bench. It's really nice vise. You know, it has been redone. I mean, I can tell that it's been bead blasted. It's got a fresh coat of paint on here. It's just kind of a, I don't know, a brown or copper looking, I don't know, more brownish looking. It looks like a hammered paint. Really nice job restoring this, and that's one less thing I'll have to do. So this one is literally ready to bolt down on the welding table, and it's ready to go. It's got some patent dates on it. The most recent one is 1914, so it's got a 1908, a 1912, and a 1914 patent date on it. So, you know, usually on patent dates, they probably wouldn't leave those numbers on there for more than 20 years. So 1914, that probably means that this was made somewhere between 1914 and 1934. That's just a rough estimate, but it's probably fairly accurate, and well made, in great shape. I'm excited about it. This is going to be a really nice addition to the shop. So anyway, thought you guys would enjoy seeing that. Another little cool purchase item that I found out on the tailgate of someone's truck is this big set of transfer punches, and this is the big set. This goes from 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and when I went by and looked at them, I saw them again kind of when I first got there and was real interested in them. I picked them up, looked at them. You know, they look like they're nicely made. All of these things are sharp. It doesn't look like it's been used, maybe not even at all. If it has been used, it's been used lightly. And I said, man, that looks like a nice set. I've got a smaller set here, or part of a smaller set now. This is what is that, a 3/32 up to 1/2 inch set. And this is actually a set that I picked up at the Bar Z Bash a couple of years ago. And truthfully, the way this one came about is it was in the raffle, and James Kilroy actually won this, and he already had a set. He came up to me and said, "You need these," and I'm like, you know, we got a set at the museum. I don't have a set at home, so I brought these home, and they're a nice set to have. I've used these, but one thing that's a little disappointing on this set is it's Chinese, and if you notice, I'm missing 2 in here. And the reason I'm missing 2 is because I literally tore them up using them because it's just cheap steel. So, you know, this is kind of a throwaway set to some extent. I'll use it, but it's a little disappointing. This set here, what really sold me, stamp, made in USA. These are good, sturdy steel. The base of this end is not wobbling around like this one here. Made by Spellmaco, Spellmaco. So anyway, gentleman had $125 on this. I asked him if he take $100, which is a little pricey, but if you go buy a new set, particularly made in USA set, that's really a bargain. You know, you go get an import set, you can probably get them a little bit cheaper, but even an import set's going to be close to that. But anyway, I'm real tickled with this. So transfer punches, in case you don't know, these come in 1/64 of an inch size. If you're got a part and you're wanting to, well, let's just say, for example, the Vise we just had up here. You need to drill holes exactly where the holes are existing in there. You can get the transfer punch of the correct size, go drop it down that hole, tap it on both sides, and you got a center punch here, and then you got a place to drill. So it's a way to transfer the center of a hole from an existing item to a new piece so that they match up perfectly. And these are very handy, you know, especially when you're trying to adapt something or use something, an existing part, and you don't want to have to try to measure it out, or it may not even been measured out originally. It may just been some random holes drilled to bolt something down, but you got to make it match. This is a tool to use. So anyway, pretty excited about the big transfer punch set. So next thing here, one of my viewers, Ted Sakura, and Ted, I'm hoping I pronounced that right. You told me how to say it right, and I don't know that I remember. So anyways, Ted Sakura had contacted me. He was coming to the event and said he wanted to bring me some. Said he had an end mill that was too big for him to use. Well, he comes up and hands me this, taped onto a note card. It's a little teeny tiny mini end mill. It's actually a dental carbide burr, I guess, for like putting in a drill to drill on your teeth. Not something I want to have in my mouth. But anyway, he handed that to me, and then he reached over and handed me the real one. And what he had here, this is a 1.25 inches, or was it 1.5 inches? 1.5 inches, I think. Yeah, 1.5 inches, 1.25 inch shank, 1.5 inch roughing end mill here. And don't know where he picked it up or whatever, but he didn't have a machine big enough to run it. Asked me if I could. I said absolutely, we can use this on the horizontal mill. So anyway, he was kind enough to bring that down, and Ted enjoyed getting to chat with you a good bit and getting to know you a little bit. He ended up purchasing a few items to take back home with him as well. So anyway, nice to meet you, Ted. So another little viewer item here. This, and I apologize, I don't remember who actually gave this to me, but he had a bunch of these on the tailgate of his truck. And what this is a little oil can, and it's quite ingenious. It's made from an aluminum beer can that kind of looks like a bottle where you got the top on the bottom. And what you do is you cut the top off and press it down inside of this, and you end up with a spill-proof oil can, just like the little plastic one that I use in my videos all the time. But this is just one that he made. It's got a magnet down in the bottom, and so if you're working on a machine, it'll actually stick to the machine, which is kind of neat, and threw in a couple of acid brushes. So nice little homemade, handmade thing here. And I have to mention this because I actually have another one of these, very similar to this right here. This one's been painted. This one still has the Miller Lite beer bottle or beer can. And this was one that was given to me back earlier in the summer by Dale Dairy. Dale and I were both at a little shop get-together up in the Atlanta area that a gentleman put on, and he actually did a little demo on how to make these and sent one home with me. And I neglected to ever put it in a video, so Dale, I apologize to you on that. The big difference with Dale's is instead of having a magnet in the bottom, he actually took some lead, melted it, poured it in the bottom. So this one is weighted, which is really nice as well. So this one's a little bit heavier, but this one here kind of, again, sticks to your machine. So both of them kind of function the same. But anyway, interesting project. Dale, maybe you need to do a video on how to make one of these if you haven't already. I don't remember seeing one. You may have actually done one. I can't remember, but neat idea. So thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate these. These will get put to work in the shop for sure. Got a visit from Santa Claus. Ho, ho, ho. So this actually came from Brian Catchadura, and Brian is a longtime friend, longtime ArnFester. Been on the OWWM discussion forums for years, and he just had a little box of some miscellaneous stuff. Got It's like a dead center, number 2 dead center, number 2 to number 1 Morse taper sleeve, and some high-speed steel that he had just picked up here, there, and yonder. He threw it all in a bag. I think there was also a little Armstrong tool of some kind. I think it was for holding a boring bar that goes like in a lantern tool post. And my buddy Mike Wiggins actually was wanting that. I don't even use a lantern post, so I parted with that, gave that one to Mike. But anyway, this came from Brian Katchadurin. Brian, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. We'll definitely, you know, you never know. It's nice to have high-speed steel already ground up. You can touch these up without a whole lot of work. And even though I use carbide most of the time, I still use high-speed steel a fair amount for little specialty jobs. There's a couple pieces in here that haven't even been ground on. So, and these are always handy, especially these sleeves. I use these things all the time, so these are great. Thanks a lot, Brian. You guys know I have a passion for old books, old catalogs, old sales pieces, whatever. And we hit the jackpot up at ArnFest, and got several things here I want to kind of share with you. So this first item here is actually not something that I purchased. This one was something that I borrowed, and this comes from Brian Block. I got a chance to visit Brian on the way up, stopped off, visited his shop. Some of you guys may watch Brian in his barn shop restoration building. Really interesting guy, has a YouTube channel. But Brian had this old Cincinnati brochure, catalog brochure, and it's just full of all kinds of little flyers and whatever on Cincinnati milling machines, broaching machines, grinders, etc. So basically, you know, this is just a collection of individual brochures and some catalogs and what have you, and it's all bound together. These come apart, you know. If you used to work in a parts house or something, you know, you'd swap these things out all the time. So the plan is that we're going to get all this stuff scanned and put up on the VintageMachinery.org website, which we already have a tremendous amount of old publications and manuals, catalogs, what have you, for researching on old machines. And it's going to take a while to get all this stuff scanned, but I'm looking forward to doing this. Will be a great resource. Most of this literature is from early to late 1940s, so anytime from basically a war vintage on up to probably the late 1940s is the era that most of the stuff in here, at least a quick look at it. So some other, you know, talking about catalogs and sales flyers, I also picked up this one here I purchased in a silent auction at ArnFest. And a little story on this, a longtime member of the OWWM discussion forums, Joe Potter, who lived out in California, was a huge, great asset to that community. He had a personal collection of old catalogs and stuff, just lots of stuff. And he passed away, unfortunately, in the past year, and a lot of his estate actually ended up going to the OWWM community, and a lot of stuff was auctioned off. A lot of it was even given away. Just, you know, there was so much of it, they basically said, hey, just go in here to Joe's library, pick you something out, make a donation. And we picked up several things from Mr. Potter's estate, I guess you could say. This was one I actually purchased in the silent auction. This is Delta Equipment Agency, nothing to do with Delta Machinery, but basically, again, just a whole slew of different catalogs and sales flyers. These are all from just a variety of different manufacturers. There's Dake presses, Diamond Multimax presses, Clausing drill presses there, Rotex bench milling machines, just you name it, it's in here. Tooling, I saw some chainsaws, I mean, whatever. So we'll go through these and pick out the stuff that's relevant to the Vintage Machinery site, get them scanned and put up. It may take me a year to do all this stuff, guys, because in addition to the two I just showed you, here's another one. What is this? Blunt machine tools. Again, they were a distributor, and there's just tons and tons of machinery stuff in here. This is mostly metalworking stuff. Again, some cool stuff. And we'll get all this stuff sorted out, scanned in, and put up on the site. And more. Coast Tool Company, Oakland, California. Again, just a bunch of sales stuff. This one is more tooling, and I really don't put a lot of tooling stuff up on the website, but there is some machinery stuff in here as well. But quite a bit of tooling stuff in here. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with some of that. But pretty excited about this nice collection of catalogs and stuff. Like I said, that's going to keep me busy for a while. Picked up a little, an old Boston gear catalog. You know, this is just more for reference purposes, dealing with gears and being able to look up gears or what have you. A lot of this stuff is still available from Boston. And this is an old catalog, and you can go on their website and look a lot of stuff up too. But sometimes I just like having the little book to thumb through in the shop. I was looking for a catalog, a date, 1966 on that one. This is kind of neat. This is actually a fairly sought after book, and I picked up a copy of it. Treatise on milling and milling machines, again by Cincinnati Milling Machine Company. And this is all about using milling machines and everything you could ever want to know about using milling machines, both vertical and horizontal. Be a great reference book for my library. And one more pretty cool old book here. The Baker, Hamilton, and Pacific Company, San Francisco General Catalog #1. It's got 1918 written in here. This was basically a hardware store distributor. So again, we showed a book similar to this in another odds and ends, and you know, I just love browsing through this stuff because you can learn so much about old tools looking through these catalogs. I mean, there's just everything under the sun in here, stuff that you just don't see anymore. And, you know, horseshoes, I mean, platform scales, doorknobs, you name it, it's in this book. And, you know, for me, I just like looking at this because I can go through here and just learn. You see a lot of stuff at flea markets and swap meats and what have you. You have no idea what it is. You look at it in here and say, oh, I've seen one of those before. I didn't know what it was. Well, you learn. So this is just kind of a neat thing. So I'm really looking forward to having some time to just browse through that, and this will all go in my personal library. So next item here, guys, I think Jeff Clow brought this over to me. This is just a little sheet of HDPE plastic, high density polyethylene. I think he just, like I said, I think this came from Jeff. I'm not 100% sure. I think he brought it over to the truck. It may have come from somewhere else. He said, here, you want this? Take it home with you. I said, sure. I'm sure that we can find something to use this for. So anyway, thank you, whoever it came from. I appreciate it. It's always nice to have some stock like this laying around. So another kind of neat item, this is actually something I picked up on the way home from ArnFest, and I'd received an email a couple of weeks ago from Larry Jacobs, who lives up near Kennesaw, Georgia, who had this cabinet. This is an old card catalog cabinet that came out of a school that his wife picked up many years ago when they were computerizing card catalogs. You young folks probably don't even know I'm talking about, a card catalog. But before computers came along, you'd have to go look books up in these and then find out where they were at in the library. And there were just stacks of these in libraries to go and find what books you needed. And his idea, and I really like this idea, is that this would make a real nice little storage cabinet for putting horizontal milling cutters in and getting them organized. Now, you know, it's not going to take a really big cutter, but I'd say probably at least half of my cutters will fit in this cabinet or in the drawers in these cabinets. And once I get over to the new shop, I can kind of go through all those cutters, get them organized, you know, by size and what have you, so that when I need a cutter, I can go look in here. Okay, I need to cut a 1/4 inch keyway. I can go over here and look for a 1/4 inch wide milling cutter and look and see what I've got that fits the bill, etc., etc. And again, kind of get things organized. And this will be a really nice addition or thing to do that with. So, you know, the drawers on these, I was a little bit concerned. He said, well, they're made out of plastic. Well, I'm not a big plastic guy. But guys, this is old school plastic. This is heavy duty plastic. These drawers are probably near about as strong as they're probably stronger than some of the steel drawers I see on card catalogs like this, the thin steel, because, you know, they were just made to hold index cards. This is heavy duty. This is going to hold up. So, and this cabinet, it's, you know, again, it's made out of particle board with veneers on it. It just about takes 2 people to pick this thing up. This thing is heavy. So yeah, it's not old school, but this is probably dates from the late 70s, early 80s, I'm guessing, and it's pretty dang well built. So I'm looking forward to getting this in the new shop and using it to help get some milling cutters organized. So in addition to the card catalog, Larry also sent me home with a couple of other items, and 2 of them are these speakers here. And these were actually some wooden cabinets that he built, I don't know, many years ago to use with a stereo down in his shop. He told me that his wife gave him a couple of years ago a really nice Bose acoustic sound stereo to use in the shop, and didn't really have a need for these speakers anymore. Said, hey, I know you're building a new shop, can you use these? And it just so happens I've got an old stereo that I took out of my house and planning on putting that out in the shop. Don't have any speakers for it, so I'm sure we can use these. Did a real nice job building the cases. These are just some like car speakers that are in here. These are what, Jensen's? They're pretty nice little speakers. And he's got it all wired up back here on the back with he's even sent me with a AC power adapter, some cabling to hook them all up. So these are pretty much ready to go. So I'm kind of anxious to get these plugged up so that I can hear. I got a little cheap speaker, this little tiny speaker up on this radio in my shop here, and these right here I think will be a big improvement. So the final thing from my visit to Larry, he had this and kind of wanted to send it back with me, and it's a mystery tool, at least to Larry and also to myself. I'm confident that some of you guys out there are going to look at this and know exactly what this is. So it's a wooden case. It's actually snap-on tools, Blue Point. And I'll tell you what, I'll zoom you in here and let you take a look at it. So again, nice wooden case. You can still see the Blue Point snap-on tools decal on the top. Open it up and you got this. So if you look at this, there's kind of a 3-jaw chuck type arrangement in here. If you screw this out, or maybe you screw it in, I can't remember. It opens and closes. There you go. It opens and closes those jaws in there. There's actually an extra set of jaws here in the box, as well as some other accessories. Not really sure. There's this little piece here that kind of collar fits up on there. It's like it's driven by something there. Guys, I don't know what this is for. It's probably, I'm guessing because it's snap-on Blue Point, it's probably some type of tool used in the automotive industry, automotive repair industry, which is something that I haven't worked in that part of the industry very much. So anyway, Larry sent this and said, had no idea what it is. It looked interesting. He picked it up somewhere along the way for dirt cheap. Didn't have a need for it. Asked me if I'd take it with me, if nothing else, just to figure out what it is. I have no clue if this is something that I really need or not, but I got it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you guys who will probably look right at it and say, oh, I know exactly what that is. I'm sure some of you will. And I'll be looking forward to reading the comments and seeing what you guys ID this as. On the way up to ArnFest, I took a little detour, Mike Wiggins and I, after I met up with him in Louisville. We went over near Cincinnati Ohio, just south of there, and I met up with my buddy Jack Hoying, who I've met one time before, came down to Tifton, and Jack and I have done a lot of horse trading back and forth. I've purchased some tools from him. He's helped me out on a couple of things where I've gotten some items up in his area, and he's gone, picked them up, and shipped them down to me. Well, Jack had a few things actually I need to get from him, pick up from him to bring down, and I met him. He was actually on his way down to Charleston, South Carolina area for a wedding, which by the way got canceled because of the hurricane after they went all the way down there. But Jack also had some stuff that he asked me if I would take it to ArnFest and see if I could sell it. He had a box full of just some miscellaneous stuff, and I did, and a lot of stuff sold. But one of the things that he had was this big straight edge, camelback straight edge. And this is 6 foot. This thing weighs almost 100 pounds. And he had a nice price on it. And I told him I was interested in it myself, put it on the tailgate of the truck, and really I'd kind of decided I was just going to keep it for myself. Had a couple people ask about it. I said, make me an offer. I might sell it to you, but I'm probably going to keep it. Anyway, I ended up bringing this home for myself. Why do I need this? I have no clue. But it was just too cool. I couldn't pass it up. Straight edge, what do you use this for? Well, this comes in very handy if you are, we've talked a little bit about surface plates and having a reference flat surface to work off of. That's great if you can take something to the surface plate. But sometimes when you're working on machines and you're trying, particularly for like hand scraping and things like that, you need to take a reference surface to the machine, and that's where a straight edge like this, these should be scraped flat on the bottom, perfectly flat, and then you can actually take it to something and do a rubbing and find the high spots that you need to work on, whatever. I've got a 3 foot, 36 inch straight edge, but like I said, I couldn't pass up on this. I do enough machinery building and enough working on big stuff, particularly at the museum, that I just decided I need to bring it home for myself. So anyway, you might see this down the road being used somewhere. I actually got a project or two that I've got a scraping class that we're going to be having here in January. I've got a project or two down the road that's going to require some scraping to bring some machines back to life. And one in particular, this may be the tool that saves the day. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in the back of my head. I don't see any names on it or anything like that. I looked around. I didn't really see any names cast into it. I'm not even sure how flat it is, but when I learn how to do scraping, I can get it flat. I'm not worried about that. So anyway, nice little item I picked up from Jack Hoy. Jack also had a couple little items that he just gave to me, and we'll show you those real quick. So first off, just a couple of boxes of some miscellaneous screws, things you can always use around the shop. I think he had a bunch of this stuff and was just wanting to find a home for it. So he gave some of these to both myself and Mike Wiggins. Here are some horizontal mill cutters, just some miscellaneous stuff that he had that he threw in, said here, just take these home with you. And the last little item is kind of cool. There's 4 of these little buttons here. You see a little wooden part down here on the bottom that protects the straight edge. These are actually from a factory one, and what they would do is they would screw down on here. They're little spring-loaded D10 in there, and you could just turn these over on there and it would hold that onto the bottom. So he gave me these to either use with this plate here, or excuse me, this straight edge, or to use with my other one if I want to build a little wooden protection for it. So these, he said, I think were made by Brown and Sharp, or came on a Brown and Sharp straight edge, so they're nice old stock. So this last item I'm going to show you today is just a box full of stuff, and this all came from Doug Groberg. Doug's another longtime friend of mine that I've been horse trading with for years, and Doug seems to come across amazing stuff all over the place, and he had just tons and tons of just stuff. There were old new old stock hammer handles of various shapes and sizes and profiles, and you know, you just never know when you need those. There is a ton of hardware in here. A lot of these are square head set screws, miscellaneous sizes. He just kind of loaded me up, and we basically filled this bin up. Here's some little clasp. There's some parts that go on a abrasive wheel dresser. There's some file handles in here. I really don't even know what all's in the box, to be honest with you, but we'll sort this out later. Find a place to put it all up, get it organized. You know, we just kind of filled the box up, and he said, "Yeah, give me 25 bucks." I said, "All right, you got a deal." So anyway, thanks, Doug. I appreciate that. Some good stuff we'll find a home for. Well, I think that's going to pretty much be all we cover in this episode of Odds and Ends. I do actually have a few other items that I picked up. They're down in my new shop. I'm obviously over here in my older shop. It's kind of a storage building now as I'm trying to get the new shop finished. The other stuff was just too heavy. I didn't bring it up here, and quite honestly, guys, it's raining outside. I'm filming this on the day that Hurricane Matthew is passing off the Georgia coast. I'm about probably 120, 130 miles from the coast where I live here. So no hurricane winds, no bad torrential downpours, but we are catching some of the outer bands of the storm. It's kind of breezy, and I'm just not gonna tote all the camera equipment down there right now. So we'll catch that in another video down the road. And I also have a couple of items that quite honestly couldn't fit in the truck. I told you at the beginning that I've been doing some traveling. I had a business trip on both the front end and back end of going to ArnFest, and I've got a bed cover on my truck, and I really wanted to keep everything under the bed cover because my truck was going to sit at the airport for a couple of days. I was going to spend some nights in hotel parking lots, and I didn't want people walking up and digging through my stuff. So a friend of mine is going to be coming down from the Chicago area in January to come to my scraping class that we're hosting, and he agreed to bring some of the other items, bigger items down. They're not huge items, but like I said, they were just a little bit more than I could haul without driving straight through, not having to worry about something getting lifted out of the truck. So we'll fill you in on those later on as well. But with that, that'll be a wrap for this episode of Odds and Ends. Hope you enjoyed seeing some of the goodies from ArnFest, and we'll be doing another one relatively soon. I got some other viewer mail that's come in as well that didn't make it into this episode that we'll catch on the next edition. As always, thank you guys for watching. Give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments, and just thank you so much for being there. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. And with that, we'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.